set the parking brake on a multi-rotor. Okay, this here is a dampener, and this is on the nose gear. And what its job is if the pilot lands and the wheels fluttering, you know, I can feel it in my rudder pedals, this shake. This thing, if you remember in class, I was pointing at, you know, the thing that keeps the doors from slamming when you walk through. When I walk into the building, there's a dampener that keeps the door. It's up above, keeps the door from slamming. Well, that's what this is. Now this has a bleed hole. It has an inlet and an outlet, and I don't know that this is really a very good picture, but I wanted to show you this dampener. And the question is, automatic dampening occurs if the steering dampener, if for any reason the high pressure fluid is removed from. The answer is the inlet. I don't have a real good explanation of this other than to say the inlet and the outlet might switch. This is really probably more of a different steering dampener. But if you think about hydraulics, you know, if one thing about it is, even if we don't have fluid on one side, we can have a hydraulic suction on the other, right? You can't, it's like a liquid lock, all right? Just remember the inlet of the steering dampener. This is an ASA question, and a lot of these I don't like. This is a picture of a nose gear, and there's a question in there that asks about limiting the travel of the nose gear. And the way you do that is if you put a spacer up inside this, like right under here. If I put a spacer, I will limit how far this can go up and down. There's another question on struts, and it has to do with how struts work. And if you look here, there's a tapered metering pin. This tapered metering pin, what his job is to do is, if you remember, we put fluid on the bottom. You guys took these apart. We had fluid on the bottom, and then you have nitrogen on the top. You charged it with air or you charged it with nitrogen. When the airplane is taxiing around, light loads, it's bouncing around on a cushion of air. When you come in and you hit hard for like landing, you compress the air so much that now with the strut compressed, it comes up to ride on the hydraulic fluid. But the hydraulic fluid would just run around inside unless you had a way to block it off. And the way that happens is, as this compresses, this tapered metering pin closes an orifice and traps the hydraulic fluid. Okay, so struts for taxi, you're taxiing on air, and for landings, you're landing on fluid, because fluid is 99% incompressible. This is the valve core, and we had valve cores, if you remember, when we took the struts apart. Now, on the very end of the core, there will be an H if it is a high pressure valve core. Okay, so there's a question about that. On a valve core stem, what indicates high pressure? It's H. It's just H. That's all it fits. That's the little bitty thing on the end that you stuck a screwdriver in to let the air out. Okay, here just a reminder on a wheel. The wheels we took apart, they were 2-piece split rim. Okay. So the question is, they go together. So and I put a tire over the top of it. So when I inflate the tire is pushing against these flanges, and these bolts are holding the wheel together. So overinflated aircraft tires may cause damage to, it's the wheel flange. Okay, the hub is down where the bearing is. Okay, so that the tire's not even near this. The hub is down here in the center. Okay, well, it's not going to hurt that. It's going to hurt up here where the tire is. Okay. Here's a question. After performing maintenance on a landing gear system, which may have affected the system's operation, it is usually necessary, and the answer is to do an operational check on the jacks. When we work on a landing gear, if I take a cylinder off, I take a brake line off, I've taken that landing gear system apart. The only way that we know it's going to work is to send it flying, and that could be dangerous because if we made a mistake, now we're going to wreck an airplane on landing. We jack the airplane and we do an operational test. So if you break into that system, if you take a line out, if you open it up, if you do some major adjustment on a landing gear, when we took the strut apart and put it back together, after the strut repack, I always do a landing gear test. Okay, so after performing maintenance on a landing gear system, make an operational check with the aircraft on jacks. 30 questions on the test. It comes from a pool. It comes from a pool of questions. So there's, I think, like 69 questions I have in the pool. They come from prior quizzes and tests. There might be a few ASA in there. They're all mostly ASA. There's a few things that I had on the midterm. So this goes back to the very beginning, everything we've gone over in this class. So hydraulics, there's no schematics. I didn't do any schematic symbols or anything like that. But there's stuff about accumulators. You need to know what accumulator is. You need to know that if you pressurize the system, that the accumulator, that the pressure at the accumulator will read system pressure. I explained that earlier on. Pretty much, you can just study your old quizzes. So there's a practice test for you to take, study, and the test will be during your lab session, and that is next week. That's the week of the 19th through the 25th, I think. No, not even that. 23rd. 19th, 23rd. So, good luck.